Word on the street ain't cap. Suge Knight was brutally attacked in jail, and
Yeah, I mean, people are questioning to see if he's sick.
Nah, this is like common prison life, man.
turns out that his recent revelations of industry top secrets made him a target for permanent silence. But the leaked footage reveals a conspiracy that goes deeper than anyone imagined. Let's get into it. The viral footage that got the streets talking. Suge Knight, the real OG who built Death Row Records from the ground up, is currently locked down doing 28 years for voluntary manslaughter after that fatal hit-and-run situation back in 2015. But now, somebody is trying to take this man out permanently, and the whole thing got caught on camera while the system tried desperately to keep that truth buried 6 feet deep. According to multiple sources who broke down the leaked material, the attack reportedly happened in June 2025 at the RJ Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego, with Suge Knight suffering severe injuries. The attack reportedly involved stabbing and beating, resulting in severe injuries such as a gashed face and cracked ribs. But that's just scratching the surface of this dark-ass story. The real tea is in what the leaked footage exposed, a skinny and sick-looking Suge Knight. As soon as the footage surfaced,
And I was told from a reliable source that he does not have HIV or any other communicable disease.
You really want to bet on that? You said or any other.
I'll bet on the HIV part.
Okay. You want to bet?
How much?
Whatever you say.
$100.
That's cool.
and shook. He didn't shut his mouth and let this narrative sell. He straight up cleared the air. In a recent interview from jail with The Art of Dialogue,
Take a look at my whole medical file. Attorney has it. And if I had a sexual disease or AIDS or anything else, what they trying to say, they can open my whole file up and see I don't have a disease.
other reactions to the footage pointed out that Suge Knight was straight up blind and appeared to have lost his sight in prison. But that should not take the attention away from what happened after the alleged attack, the wiped security logs, the deleted phone records, and that mysterious 8-minute window where the prison cameras conveniently went all static and __. But before we look at the footage, we got to break down who we're dealing with here. Suge Knight ain't just some regular inmate doing time. This cat has been at the epicenter of hip-hop's most dangerous controversies for decades. Knight was instrumental in signing and promoting major artists, posting bail for Tupac Shakur in 1995, leading to albums like All Eyes on Me, 1996, which became a commercial milestone. His Death Row empire put legends like Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and Tupac on the map, generating over $100 million in its first 4 years and basically creating the blueprint for West Coast dominance. But with all that power came mad enemies, and Knight's rise was built on a foundation of fear, muscle, and what the streets know as straight-up organized criminal activity. He was accused of using intimidation and violence, allegedly employing gang members such as the Mob Peru Bloods, creating a business model that had the entire industry shook. This history of beef and all the enemies he made over the years is crucial to—
I mean, he's very high profile.
Yeah.
If you put him in general population, God knows, like
Yeah.
some Tupac fan or some Biggie fan who thinks he somehow has
Right.
something to do with it.
And respectfully, you know, if there's levels to PC yards, some more wilder than others.
Well, it didn't matter if Suge Knight was in the general population or a protective custody, because what went down that night, according to the leaked footage, wasn't no random prison drama. This was some coordinated street justice, with all the markings of a professional hit job. The attack reportedly involved a violent ambush where Knight was stabbed and beaten, resulting in severe injuries, including a gashed face, cracked ribs, and blood on the floor. The perpetrator was described as having a covered face and gloved hands with no identification, which tells you this wasn't no crime of passion, but a calculated attempt to eliminate this dude permanently. But why would anyone want to permanently take out the big dog? Well,
after he made that crazy ass statement to People magazines that Tupac mother tried to slip some pills to Tupac, when we all know that Tupac wasn't even talking and that he wanted to smoke a blunt and confess his love and all of that to him.
But perhaps the most foul aspect of this whole situation isn't even the violence itself. It's the institutional response that followed. The footage reveals a pattern that suggests not just negligence, but active participation in a cover-up that goes deep into the prison system itself. Security camera footage showing static during the attack between 10:38 p.m. and 10:46 p.m. wasn't no technical glitch. This was a carefully orchestrated blackout designed to hide the real. The evidence of institutional complicity is overwhelming as hell. The cell door was unlocked for 2.5 minutes, significantly longer than the standard 30 seconds, providing the perfect window for the attack to go down. Witnesses reportedly heard thuds and heavy breathing. And there are claims of a cover-up, including wiped security logs and deleted phone records post-attack. This wasn't just some sloppy work. This was active participation in attempted murder. What makes this story even more compelling is the complete silence from mainstream media. Despite the detailed accounts and videos, the lack of coverage from mainstream news outlets raises questions about verification. This absence of official reporting ain't no accident. It's a calculated move to contain a story that threatens to expose corruption at the highest levels of both the prison system and the entertainment industry. As we dig deeper into this investigation, we're going to explore not just what happened that night in June, but why it happened, who wanted Suge Knight's silence, and what explosive secrets he's been dropping that made him such a dangerous target. The attack on Suge Knight wasn't just an assault on one dude. It was an attack on the truth itself. And the viral footage that emerged represents the first crack in a wall of silence that powerful people have spent years building up. The industry secrets that put a target on his back. Real talk. To understand why somebody would orchestrate such a vicious attack on Suge Knight in the pin, we got to examine the explosive secrets he's been spilling from behind bars. Secrets so damaging that they might have literally signed his death warrant. Since launching his podcast from prison, Knight has been systematically tearing down the carefully constructed facades of some of the music industry's most powerful players, exposing a web of corruption, abuse, and straight-up criminality that reaches into the highest levels of the entertainment game. The timing of the attack becomes crystal clear when you peep what Knight has been revealing through his Collect Call with Suge Knight podcast launched in October 2023. This ain't just some casual prison talk. These are calculated, detailed exposes targeting what he calls the industry top dogs, and the content is so explosive that it's apparently worth murking somebody to keep quiet. Perhaps the most devastating revelation dropped in episode 1, where Knight alleges that Akon and Detail sexually assaulted two young girls, a 13-year-old and her 12-year-old friend in a hotel room. This ain't just industry gossip. This is straight-up accusations of child sexual abuse against globally recognized figures. The gravity of such a claim can't be understated, especially when it's coming from someone with Knight's insider knowledge of the industry's darkest corners. But the sexual assault allegations are just the tip of the iceberg, fam. In episode 18...
Like Snoop.
Oh, Snoop would never come. I mean, Snoop was on, we beat a murder trial for him, but then he was on probation. Then he got caught with 2 ounces of marijuana. Then he got caught with guns. And each time it's nothing. They're not going to violate him. Because for the street guys know what I'm talking about. There's no puzzle. I mean, if you get a guy that constantly getting in trouble and never going to come to prison, that's because he's an informant. He's a rat, a snitch,
The pattern Knight describes is one of protection in exchange for information. A system where certain high-profile cats are allowed to operate with complete immunity as long as they keep feeding information to law enforcement. This would explain not just Diddy's apparent get-out-of-jail-free card, but the immunity enjoyed by numerous other industry figures who seem to skate by despite repeated legal troubles. Knight's revelations about Dr. Dre are equally damaging and personal as hell. In episode 20, Knight details Dr. Dre's history of violence against women, including a graphic account of his 1991 attack on Dee Barnes and additional accounts from Barnes's husband. While some of these incidents were previously known, Knight's insider perspective and additional details paint a picture of systematic abuse that was covered up by the industry's power brokers. But perhaps the most dangerous aspect of Knight's revelations ain't just what he's saying. It's what he's implying about the system that enabled and protected these behaviors. The alleged motive for the attack is linked to Knight's recent public statements, with videos suggesting this may have made him a target, with one stating tied to secrets Suge was exposing, especially after naming names like Diddy, Clyde Davis.
Number one was Clyde Davis. And you got to understand one thing. It's Death Row. When I started Death Row, you got to remember one thing. I didn't have no co-crime and nobody else. So I started that company on my own and grabbed Dr. Dre. At the end of the day, it was like this. When you have, so Universal is one big company. Doug Morris is the man at the time.
This reveals Knight's understanding of how the music industry really works. Not as competing companies, but as one massive interconnected system controlled by a small group of executives who decide who rises and who falls. When Knight talks about Clive Davis and Doug Morris, he's naming the puppet masters who pull all the strings behind the scenes. The systematic nature of the abuse Knight describes is particularly chilling. He ain't just talking about isolated incidents.
Well, all due respect to Puffy, you gotta realize one thing. He didn't start off like that. I'm quite sure somebody taught him that, and that's more deep in the industry. You guys who got involved with a lot of people who were their mentors, instead of having a guy to mentor your own father, they just have these guys that mentor. And when that happens in the industry, it was done to them, they do to the next person.
This reveals the cyclical nature of abuse in the industry, how victims become perpetrators, how the system corrupts everyone it touches, and how this corruption gets passed down through generations of industry figures. Knight is essentially describing a massive conspiracy of silence that has protected predators for decades. The danger Knight poses to this system can't be overstated. He ain't just making accusations. He's providing a roadmap to understanding how the entire corrupt system operates. His knowledge spans decades and includes first-hand witness accounts of crimes, cover-ups, and corruption involving...
I didn't do anything to lose my company. I didn't do anything illegal to get my company taken away from me. They was able to commit fraud for my company, but it ends up to the hands of people who want to buy my company for $500 million, $700 million. I kept saying no, and then turn around, they can get block everybody and end up getting it for what, 20 or 30 million.
This ain't just business competition. This is organized theft on a massive scale, orchestrated by the same power brokers who Knight is now exposing. His refusal to sell Death Row records for hundreds of millions of dollars only to have it stripped away and sold for a fraction of its value shows how the system operates when someone refuses to play by their rules. The most chilling aspect of Knight's revelations is his explanation of how the system protects its own while destroying those who threaten it. His comparison between how different industry figures are treated by law enforcement reveals a two-tiered justice system where cooperation with authorities buys immunity from prosecution. These revelations explain why someone would want Knight permanently silenced. He ain't just another disgruntled former executive. He's a dude with decades of insider knowledge who has decided to burn down the entire corrupt system that destroyed his life and career. Every podcast episode, every interview, every revelation is another nail in the coffin of the industry's carefully constructed image. The attack on Knight wasn't random prison violence. It was a calculated attempt to silence a man whose knowledge threatens to bring down some of the most powerful figures in entertainment. The secrets he's been revealing ain't just gossip. They're criminal allegations that could result in prosecutions, imprisonments, and the complete restructuring of how the music industry operates. Suge Knight's legacy and Tupac's murder controversy. To understand why this attack was orchestrated and covered up so systematically, we got to examine Knight's unparalleled impact on hip-hop culture, his role in the most legendary rap beefs in history, and his explosive recent revelations about Tupac Shakur's death that have shattered decades of carefully constructed street narratives. Suge Knight didn't just participate in hip-hop history. He created that ish straight from the ground up. His Death Row Records empire launched the careers of legends like Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and Tupac Shakur, generating over $100 million in its first 4 years and fundamentally reshaping not just music, but American culture itself. The G-Funk sound that emerged from Death Row didn't just top charts. It became the soundtrack of the streets and established West Coast hip-hop as a cultural force that could rival anything coming from the East Coast. But Knight's impact went way beyond just producing bangers. He revolutionized how hip-hop artists were promoted, protected, and positioned in the industry. Knight was instrumental in signing and promoting major artists, posting bail for Tupac Shakur in 1995, leading to albums like All Eyes on Me, 1996, which became a commercial milestone. This wasn't just a business transaction. This was a rescue mission that saved one of hip-hop's greatest artists and gave the world some of its most influential music. The death row empire under Knight's leadership represented something unprecedented in the music industry, a black-owned powerhouse that operated on its own terms, refused to bow to industry pressure, and generated wealth that rivaled the major labels. Albums like Dr. Dre's The Chronic, 1992, which went triple platinum, and Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style, 1993, achieving quadruple platinum status, not only dominated charts, but also defined the aesthetic of West Coast hip-hop. However, Knight's most significant and controversial contribution to hip-hop history was his role in escalating the East Coast, West Coast beef that would define the genre's most legendary and tragic chapter. The 1995 Source Awards became a pivotal moment when Knight publicly challenged the East Coast establishment, particularly targeting Sean Diddy Combs and Bad Boy Records. This wasn't just professional competition. This was a declaration of war that would reshape hip-hop forever and have the whole culture choosing sides. The beef that Knight helped orchestrate wasn't just about music. It was about power, respect, and control over hip-hop's future direction. Death Row's aggressive, unapologetic approach to both music and business challenged the more polished commercial style that dominated East Coast hip-hop at the time. This cultural clash created some of the most legendary music in hip-hop history. But it also set the stage for tragedy that would rock the entire culture. The current prison attack on Knight and its systematic cover-up become even more significant when we consider his recent explosive claims about Tupac Shakur's death, revelations that have the potential to rewrite one of hip-hop's most enduring mysteries. Knight's proximity to Tupac during the fatal 1996 shooting in Las Vegas made him not just a witness.
My whole thing was, Pac said he was shot. I'm like, you shot? I'm gonna get you to the hospital. I'm driving, telling him I'm gonna get to the hospital, kick back. Pac looked at me and said, you know what? You need the doctor more than me. You the one shot in your head. And we laughed the whole time going to find out what to the hospital. That's the conversation we had.
This intimate account reveals not just the chaos of that night, but the deep bond between Knight and Tupac. A bond that makes Knight's recent allegations about industry involvement in Tupac's death even more significant. When Knight claims that powerful industry figures wanted Tupac silenced, he's speaking as someone who witnessed firsthand the threats and pressures that Tupac faced from the industry's power players. But wait, it gets even crazier. Knight's recent prison interviews have also provided shocking insights into other industry deaths, including his controversial statements about Eazy